Mia was a little girl with an imagination so vivid that her world seemed like it belonged to another realm. To her, the woods behind her home weren't just trees and dirt paths, they were a kingdom. The stones were ancient relics, the streams were enchanted rivers, and every shadow held the promise of adventure. Mia didn't just see the world, she felt it, every corner of it alive with possibility. Her father, David, loved watching her play, but he stayed on the sidelines, a spectator to her magic. Life hadn't left much room for wonder in David's world. His days were full of work emails, grocery lists, and bills. He had once been a dreamer. He remembered sketching castles and building rocket ships out of cardboard. But those days felt like another lifetime. He had responsibilities now, and dreams didn't pay the rent. One crisp autumn afternoon, Mia ran deeper into the woods than usual. "Come on, Daddy," she called over her shoulder. David hesitated, his phone buzzing with reminders, but something in her voice made him follow. Mia stopped at a clearing where sunlight streamed through the canopy, making the fallen leaves glimmer like gold. "It's here," she said, pointing to the ground. She crouched and began digging with her tiny hands, pulling out what looked like a crystal shard about the size of her palm. "It's a piece of the stars," she exclaimed, her eyes wide with wonder. David knelt beside her, chuckling. "It's just a rock, sweetheart." "No, it's not," Mia insisted, clutching it to her chest. "It's magic. You just don't see it because you're too old." Her words stung in a way he didn't expect. "You said, no, set the scene, how old she is, where they love, etc. Be descriptive, but make easy to understand," ChatGPT said. ChatGPT Mia was 7 years old, with curly hair that always seemed tangled with leaves and a pair of shoes that were never quite clean. She lived with her dad, David, in a small house at the edge of a quiet town. Their backyard spilled into a sprawling forest, a place that felt like it had been made just for her. The trees stood tall and ancient, their branches weaving a canopy that filtered sunlight into shimmering patches on the ground. To Mia, this wasn't just a forest, it was a world of secrets waiting to be uncovered. David had bought the house 2 years ago after Mia's mom passed away. He'd thought a quieter life might help them both heal. But while Mia seemed to thrive in her magical woods, David found himself sinking deeper into his routines. He worked from home, staring at his laptop most days and worried constantly about doing enough to provide for his daughter. The forest for him was just a backdrop, a pretty view from the kitchen window while he made coffee. One autumn afternoon, Mia burst into his office, cheeks flushed from playing outside. "Daddy, come quick," she said, grabbing his hand with urgency only a child could muster. David sighed, glancing at his screen. He was swamped with emails, but the look in her eyes made him pause. Okay, he said, standing up. "What's so important?" Mia didn't answer, just pulled him out of the house and into the woods. She led him along familiar trails, the crunch of leaves beneath their feet filling the silence. After a few minutes, she stopped abruptly in a clearing. It was a place David hadn't noticed before, though Mia seemed to know it well. Sunlight poured through the treetops, making the leaves shimmer like they were dipped in gold. A soft breeze carried the earthy smell of the forest, and somewhere in the distance birdsong echoed faintly. It was beautiful, David thought, but what was he supposed to be looking at? "There," Mia said, pointing to the ground. She dropped to her knees and began digging in the dirt with her small hands, unearthing something shiny. After a few moments, she held it up for David to see, a crystal-like object glowing faintly in the light. "It's a piece of the stars," she said, her voice filled with awe. David crouched beside her, taking the object in his hand. It was cool to the touch, perfectly smooth, and almost seemed to pulse with its own light. He turned it over, trying to make sense of what it was. Probably just a weird rock, he thought. "It's not just a rock," Mia said, as if reading his mind. It's magic. You just can't see it." David smiled faintly. "And why can't I see it?" "Because you're a grown-up," Mia said simply. "You forgot how." Her words lingered in the air, cutting through the crisp breeze and settling deep into David's chest. She was right, wasn't she? He had forgotten how to see the magic in things. He'd stopped looking for it a long time ago, somewhere between paying bills and losing the woman he loved. That night, Mia placed the star crystal in a shoebox, calling it her treasure chest. She filled it with little trinkets, acorns, feathers, shiny bits of broken glass, and told her dad it was full of magic. David watched her from the doorway of her room, her laughter filling the space as she played. The next morning, when Mia tugged him outside again, David didn't hesitate. For the first time in years, he let himself imagine. He saw shapes in the clouds and faces in the bark of the trees. He felt the crunch of the leaves underfoot as more than just a sound. It felt alive, like a rhythm. The world, through Mia's eyes, wasn't just a forest, it was a place brimming with wonder. David didn't know if the crystal was truly magic, but something inside him had changed. For the first time in years, he didn't just see the world as it was. He saw what it could be.